Once upon a time, there was a dream that gave birth to a nightmare, but not the good kind.
Finish the story already!
I've not even technically started the story. I've not even done the intro to the start of the story.
Finish the story! Finish the story!
But not the bad kind of nightmare. The kind of good nightmare that saves you from what had been a longer, much worse nightmare. The story of Cody and the Rhodes family is one of the most fascinating in professional wrestling history. A family that WWE would set up to fail for them to fully commit and succeed. A family that would be humiliated for them to get over in spite of it. A family that would bet on themselves time and time again for those bets to be proved right. We've heard plenty about finishing stories, but where did it start? Hop into my wrestling DeLorean and let's go right back to the beginnings, back where the dream was birthed. Rhodes, where we're going. We're actually going to need quite a lot of roads. Dusty Rhodes was born as Virgil Runnels Jr. in 1945, where he was raised in rural Texas by, yes, pro wrestling is sometimes true, the son of a plumber. Virgil grew up in legitimate poverty, living in the predominantly black and Latino area of town, but it was that community and attending services at a black Southern Baptist church that gave him one of his most unique wrestling traits, the speaking style and cadence he would later use in his promos. Borrowing from black culture as well as white, he was able to be an everyman figure, being universally loved as a working class hero. He was such a good talker, in fact, he literally talked his way into his first job in wrestling. Age 22 with no experience in the business, Virgil decided to join his Texas State friends Duncombe and the Funks at the Boston wrestling promotion Big Time Wrestling and just bluffed his way into a job. Now that's a good promo. He had his first matches in the Boston Garden in 1967, and in 1968 he also spent time wrestling for World Class in Dallas and in Kansas City. It was down in Dallas where he started using the Rhodes name. Virgil had been wrestling as Dusty Runnels up until this point, but Gary Hart suggested he change his name to Lonesome Rhodes after the charismatic drifter character in the movie A Face in the Crowd. Great movie, go watch it. Dusty replied he don't plan on being lonesome. Giggity. So he just used the Rhodes part to replace Runnels. By the early 70s, he was working his way up the card, and the American Dream character was becoming increasingly popular, especially in the Florida Territory's Championship Wrestling. So popular, in fact, he would go on to challenge Vince McMahon Sr.'s WWF champion, superstar Billy Graham, and win. But Dusty never officially held the championship belt that WWE still uses as its top title today. From August 1977 to January 1978, Dusty would fight Graham for the belt 11 times across Florida's Championship Wrestling and the WWF, from the Jacksonville Coliseum to the Boston Garden. He won 10 of them, but always via technicalities that meant the title never actually changed hands. Most of those were via DQ. Apart from one. On the 26th of September 1977, Dusty Rhodes won via countout. Dusty celebrated with the belt raised above his head, and he would keep a picture of that moment in his house for the rest of his life, even though he never officially won it. Dusty could count almost every NWA championship multiple times to his name, but he never actually held a title in the WWF. That story would never be finished by him. Life as a professional wrestler, let alone one of its top stars during the territory days, were hard. Dusty was on the road for as many as 340 days a year, and while his career thrived, his family life suffered. He had married his first wife Sandra in 1965, but they divorced 10 years later. By that time, they had 2 young children, Kristen, who grew up to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and his professional wrestling namesake Dustin, who was born in 1969. Dusty later admitted he had put little effort into his family during those years, and he would feel guilty about that for the rest of his life. In 1979, he married Michelle Rubio. Seemingly learning from his first experience, he stayed with her for the rest of his days. By 1985, aged 40, Dusty was a 2-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and was on one of the most iconic in-ring runs of his career, feuding with Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. He was also becoming a prominent figure behind the scenes, working for Jim Crockett Promotions as a booker, which was then in a wrestling war with WWF. That's why when Ted DiBiase got a manservant bodyguard in the WWF, they called him Virgil, as an inside joke on Dusty's real name. Dusty proved to be a genius outside the ring, though. He pioneered the supercard concept with Starrcade that would eventually be used by the WWF as WrestleMania. He came up with match stipulations like War Games, Battle Bowl, and Lethal Lottery. Okay, they weren't all great. And he initially thrilled audiences with Dusty finish booking, when a babyface would win the title, only for that decision to be reversed on a technicality, exactly like that WWF title never win on September 26th, 1977.
Did someone say finish?
Talking about Dusty finishes.
Well, then Dusty finished the story.
Then stop interrupting! Meanwhile, Dusty's first son had decided to train as a wrestler to see more of his dad. He resented his father's frequent absence during his own childhood, and this often put a strain on their relationship. Dustin Runnels made his wrestling debut as Dustin Rhodes in one of his dad's most famous territories, Florida's Championship Wrestling in 1988, even winning the NWA Florida Championship. He would later be called the Natural in WCW because, just like his dad, he was a natural to the sport. After a detached upbringing, Dustin could inherit his father's mantle. Perhaps he could finish the story. Father and son found themselves in the WWF at the same time in 1990. Even though the company was trying to humiliate Dusty by dressing him up in an unflattering polka dot singlet, which Dusty still somehow got over in, Dustin admitted he'd never felt closer to his dad. Unfortunately, due to Dustin's substance abuse issues and Dusty not approving of his relationship with girlfriend and future wife Terry, they would later become estranged, not speaking for over 5 years. The Rhodes family was effectively split in 2. During that time, Dustin had moved back to the WWF, debuting his Goldust character in 1995, which he recalled in an interview. It was very shocking to Dad because he didn't know about the gimmick. Dad's got this look on his face like, what is going on? That's my son. What is he doing? I don't know if he was embarrassed or what, but that's when we weren't talking, and I just had to do that, I guess. I wanted more. Ironically, the Goldust gimmick took Dustin by surprise too. He'd told Vince McMahon he wanted to step out of his father's shadow, so Vince suggested an androgynous gimmick they had in mind. Dustin, not knowing what androgynous meant, agreed, and was shocked when he found out what it actually was. But when the Rhodes family have a job to do, be it in polka dots, gold, or stars, they make it work. When Dusty saw Goldust for the first time, he was watching Raw on TV with his other son, the one he'd vowed to spend more time with, Cody Runnels. In 1985, while Dusty was booking Jim Crockett Promotions and feuding with Ric Flair and the Horsemen, his second child with Michelle was born. Cody Garrett Runnels was born on the 30th of June, and Dusty was determined to be a better father than he had been to Dustin. He made sure he was around far more, even coaching Cody's childhood football team. Cody was around professional wrestling from the moment he was born. He claims his earliest memory is of a WCW show, specifically the logo in the ring. The Four Horsemen would come to his home for Thanksgiving dinner, exposing the business, and backstage at shows, Cody counted the likes of Medusa and stunning Steve Austin as his babysitters. Cody idolized his father and the larger-than-life superstars he worked with, attending every WCW event he could. He would rent VHS tapes of Dusty in his glory days and watch the highlights over and over again, winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, wrestling in the first ever War Games, the match type Dusty created. But it wasn't just his father he looked up to. Cody also adored watching his older half-brother Dustin wrestle, where he recalled never being prouder of him than when he was the Natural in WCW. So of course, Cody dreamed of becoming a professional wrestler too, but he knew that Dusty would never approve, him having seen the best and the worst of the industry. So Cody focused on other things. He had a successful high school amateur wrestling career, winning the Junior Georgia State Tournament at 189 pounds in 2003. Dusty attended every match in the same outfit of jeans, flannel, and a Cleveland Browns t-shirt, thinking it was a lucky charm. Maybe there was something to that. Cody went undefeated in his junior year. And when Cody decided to try out acting, Dusty gave his son $10,000 to study at the Howard Fine Acting Studio. But finally, at 19 years old, Cody plucked up the courage to tell his father what he really wanted to do with his life. Driving home from breakfast at the local Waffle House, he announced, "I don't want to do anything but wrestling." According to Cody, Dusty sat silently behind the wheel of the car, processing what he'd just heard. After a few minutes of contemplation, Dusty said, "If you're going to do it, then be the best." He promised when Cody eventually won a world championship, Dusty would give him his treasured gold Rolex watch. Cody reported to OVW, at the time a feeder promotion for WWE, in 2006 at 21 years old. He'd already learned the fundamentals of wrestling from his dad, who'd been teaching him since the age of 12. Way to dissuade your kid, Dusty! And he did have some in-ring experience as a referee in Dusty's promotion, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. At OVW, Cody was trained by Al Snow, Danny Davis, Ricky Morton, and, notably, his future legacy leader, Randy Orton. In June 2006, Cody made his in-ring debut in OVW, but choosing to wrestle as his real name, Cody Runnels, not as Cody Rhodes. Just like Dustin before him, Cody didn't want to just be known as Dusty's son. He wanted to be his own man. So when he debuted in WWE the following July, they called him Cody Rhodes, had him appear in a backstage segment with Dusty Rhodes, and centered his whole debut around Dusty Rhodes. Because Cody's first WWE match came a week after Dusty's final wrestling match ever. After Orton, Cody's OVW trainer, had slapped Dusty backstage, Randy would kill another legend by beating him in a Texas bull rope match. The American Dream officially retired, age 61. If you don't count him teaming with Cody and Goldust at an FCW house show 3 years later. Cody made his in-ring debut the week after, on the July 16th, 2007 episode of Raw, losing to Orton. From the very start of his WWE career, Cody had been finishing his father's stories. A tag title run with Hardcore Holly followed. That's a trivia question answer for you, but it was 2008 where Cody got his first proper break. Orton recruited him and Ted DiBiase Jr. to form Legacy, a trio of generational wrestlers riding the coattails of their father's reputations. Now with Randy Orton, Cody got his first taste of main events, wrestling tag matches against the likes of DX and Batista. In 2010, after predominantly being in tag teams or factions, Cody tried out his first proper singles gimmick after being drafted to SmackDown. As dashing Cody Rhodes, he claimed to be the best looking wrestler in the company and would teach grooming tips and vignettes. It was a perfectly serviceable mid-card heel act. But when Rey Mysterio legitimately broke Cody's nose by hitting a 619 with an exposed knee brace in January 2011, Rhodes found a new dimension to the character. After taking several weeks off to recover, he returned with an altered Phantom of the Opera style gimmick called Undashing Cody Rhodes, who had been forced to get facial reconstructive surgery because of Mysterio, and wore a clear protective mask which he would often use in cheating to win. Cody had found a heelish edge that stuck out during WWE's age of eternal mid-carders, and he would later say he considers it amongst the best work of his career. The gimmick propelled him to the first singles title win of his career. In August 2011, Cody beat Ezekiel Jackson on SmackDown to win the Intercontinental Championship. Several months later, in a very babyface move for a heel, he then re-debuted the much-loved classic Intercontinental title design, white strap and all. Cody was winning over a very certain type of wrestling fan, the sort that pined for the better WWE of their childhood. I'm saying he won over me. Throughout all of this, Dusty was, and I quote Cody's sister in saying this, aggressively supportive. But it wasn't until 2013 where they interacted on screen again. On September 12, 2013, Cody married his fellow WWE star Eden Styles, real name Brandy Reed, and took a few weeks off to enjoy his honeymoon. To write him off TV, Cody was fired by the Authority after losing a match to Randy Orton. And while Cody was gone, they had his real-life half-brother Dustin, in WWE as Goldust, to try to get him reinstated. This was 2013-era Authority though, so they just fired Goldust too, which brought in their dad Dusty to plead for both their jobs, to get knocked out by a tearful Big Show on the Authority's orders. Cody and Goldust returned to avenge their father, just like how Cody first debuted in WWE, teaming against The Shield at Battleground 2013 with Dusty in their corner. For the first time, the three Rhodes family members were together on screen. Cody and Goldust won, and the Rhodes embraced in tears. They won the tag titles soon after. They were on the Rhodes to success. So WWE ruined everything. Cody was pitched a new idea. Stardust, a proposed offshoot, parody, reboot. Never really figured out what it was of his brother's Goldust character. Cody had his concerns, but he was a Rhodes, and Rhodes turn yellow or gold-based into actual gold. He found his own angle on the one-dimensional idea, finding inspiration in comic book villains like Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman Forever. Stardust eventually turned heel on Goldust and feuded with his brother. Cody and Dustin lobbied heavily for a blow-off match at WrestleMania, but Vince refused to book it because he thought it wouldn't be good enough. Cody added another unfinished story to the Rhodes family scrapbook. Cody began to feel trapped in the Stardust character. He pleaded with writers backstage to drop the gimmick, but nothing changed. He talked about this with his father, who encouraged him to explore other options. But on June 11th, 2015, before Cody had made a decision, Dusty Rhodes passed away due to kidney failure, aged 69. That Sunday's Money in the Bank pay-per-view would open with a 10-bell salute with the entire roster and McMahon family on the entrance ramp in his honor. When he was going through Dusty's belongings, Cody looked for the gold Rolex watch his father had once promised he'd give him when he won his first world title. But he couldn't find it. It was then he found out that, despite all the championships the Dream had won and the arenas he'd sold out, his father had fallen on his own hard times. Dusty had pawned that Rolex to afford Cody's acting classes when he was at school. Dusty's death was tough on Cody, and members of his family were concerned he was sinking into a depression. He began drinking regularly, and on one European tour found himself downing half a bottle of Southern Comfort every night to try and ease the pain. He was reportedly planned to finally drop the Stardust character after Mania because the fans wanted to cheer for the real Cody following his father's passing, but McMahon yet again cancelled the idea. Cody was now seriously considering life outside WWE, but unlike many wrestlers now on the roster, and his own father, who had worked the territories or the indies first before signing with Vince McMahon, Cody was the opposite. Because of his last name, he was able to enter the WWE system right away. So he started to ask other wrestlers like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn what those indies were like, and the more he heard, for the first time in a while, began to feel excited. On May 16th, 2016, almost a year since Dusty had passed, Cody was backstage at one of his father's favourite venues, the Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina. He'd just been bumped off the show. Cody picked up the phone, called Mark Carrano, WWE's then Vice President of Talent Relations, and requested his release from WWE. His wife Brandy quit as a ring announcer 3 days later. It was time to leave. It was time to bet on himself. The following week, on May 21st, 2016, Cody announced that he had been granted his release, with a statement that sounds like long-term booking in hindsight. "My goal in pro wrestling has always been to win the WWE Championship, the one accolade in the game my father never obtained. And for a decade, I tried to convince both Vince and Triple H that I could be their star player, their varsity quarterback, if you will. But it seems we have reached the point where neither saw that in me. This was never about the money me, this was always about the moment, and I'll be damned if my father's legacy is Stardust or a series of sizzle reels for NXT. It's not my job to pick up his sword. It's my privilege. After trying to break away from Dusty's name in the early part of his career, Cody realized he could be his own man while walking the roads his father had traveled. Work every territory you can, learn the business inside and out, become unfrickin' deniable. Unfortunately, now he'd come to terms with that legacy, he couldn't actually use the name anymore. For the next 4 years, he would be known as Cody, or Cody Runnels, or one time Cody R, because WWE actually owned the trademark for Cody Rhodes. He legally, literally, had to make his own name, but he had a plan. A few days after his release, Cody posted a handwritten list of all the things he was now going to do, wanting to wrestle names like Adam Cole, Kurt Angle and the Young Bucks, competing at PWG's Battle of Los Angeles, and the streamers thing, which isn't Twitch like every wrestler has today, it's when ROH fans would throw streamers in the ring. The list showed an acute awareness of what was cool in pro wrestling at that time. This is Bullet Club era Bucks, still good Kurt Angle, even Shibata was on there from New Japan. If Cody was going to try this indie thing, he was going to go full indie. His first ever match outside WWE took place in August 2016, beating Zack Sabre Jr. by submission at Evolve 66. He would wrestle for promotions across the US, including the Battle of Los Angeles on his checklist, and What Culture Pro Wrestling in the UK, where he fought Kurt Angle, another tick. He signed non-exclusive deals with both Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor, allowing him to work both promotions, but it was New Japan Pro Wrestling and a hookup from Kevin Owens that would be the most industry-shaking. He asked me for some sort of guidance because he had never been on the independent scene before, and I gave him the Young Bucks numbers and I told them, "Can you guys take care of this guy?" On December 10th, 2016, Cody was announced for New Japan, debuting his American Nightmare name and unveiling himself as the newest member of the Bullet Club, then the coolest wrestling faction in the world, before it gained another 30 members. He would become particularly close with the elite faction within the faction of Kenny Omega and the Bucks, becoming a fixture on their Being the Elite YouTube series. Ring of Honor, New Japan, the UK scene, various indies were experiencing record numbers. Bullet Club t-shirts started to be sold in Hot Topic, and Cody was on the ground level, traveling from show to show, connecting with fans as wrestling's everyman, and hearing that they desperately wanted an alternative to WWE. So when a fan asked wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer on Twitter whether he thought Ring of Honor could sell 10,000 tickets for a wrestling show, and Meltzer responded, "Not anytime soon," Cody replied, "I'll take that bet, Dave." I'm starting to think Cody has a gambling problem. All Cody and the Young Bucks needed to do now was put on a wrestling show for 10,000 live fans. That seems pretty easy in 2024, where TV episodes of Raw sell out arenas, but in 2018, it hadn't been done by anyone other than WWE in the US for almost 2 decades. The show was called, fittingly, All In. Not just for its indie wrestler version of Avengers Assemble, but also because of the bet Cody had put his reputation on, that there were enough wrestling fans out there who wanted something new. And boy did he win. The event sold out in under 30 minutes. On September 1st, 2018, the Sears Center in Illinois hosted something more than a wrestling show. All In was a festival of wrestling, with fans from all walks of life coming together to watch legends like DDP, current stars like Kazuchika Okada, and future greats like MJF. It was a love letter to all the things professional wrestling was, is, and can be. And the best blend of past, present, and future styles came with Cody wrestling Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Wearing the same dual hats of performer and promoter that Dusty once did, Cody was able to translate his vision for professional wrestling, a dramatic mixture of sports presentation and old-school wrestling emotion, to the ring. He won again, raising the same historic title his dad famously held above his head.
Whoa! What a way to finish the story. Yes, Cody, that's a story that needs finishing. Finish that story.
It is a story, yes, but not the story. This was for the NWA title.
How many stories are there?
There's quite a few. With All In a huge success and a sizable gap in the wrestling market proved, Cody, the Bucks, Omega and Tony Khan launched the brand new company All Elite Wrestling on January 1st, 2019. AEW positioned itself as a promotion that would prioritize athlete welfare, creative freedom and fan engagement. In short, everything that 2010's WWE was not. Cody, the Bucks and Omega took executive vice president positions, and 5 months later they ran their first show. Omega revived his New Japan feud with Chris Jericho, the Bucks had a super kick party with the Lucha Bros, and Cody, the other EVP, finally got that match against his brother. 2 months previously, Goldust had let his WWE contract expire, making him available for Double or Nothing. Competing as the natural gimmick, the same one Cody idolized as a child watching his brother on TV, they had a tear-jerking bloodbath, giving AEW its first ever 5-star match. Over the next 2 years, AEW continued to grow with Cody as a pivotal figure. He helped elevate MJF in his first serious rivalry. He was the inaugural TNT champion back when the company didn't have 38 belts, and he cut his own version of his father's Hard Times promo, passionately recapping his journey from undesirable in WWE to unfrickin' deniable. He even got his name back when WWE cancelled their trademark, meaning he could be called Cody Rhodes once more. But looking back, he sowed the seeds of his own destruction early on. Just a month after AEW had launched their weekly TV show Dynamite, Cody declared if he didn't beat Jericho for the world title, he'd never be able to challenge for it again. It was yet another creative gamble with very high stakes, and I believe is one of Cody's rare losses. He didn't beat Jericho, and although his initial TNT title run was fantastic, he became a main event star oddly shackled in the mid-card, never able to fight again for the top belt. It created an odd part of the shows that became known as the Codyverse, feuds and stories that revolved around Cody but felt separate from the rest of the roster. Perhaps that's why it suddenly became fashionable to boo Cody Rhodes. Fans were aching for him to turn heel to freshen up what his character could do, but Cody would not give in, which obviously made people only boo him more, which led to Cody doing the unthinkable. He left AEW. To call Cody's decision to leave AEW in February 2022 an easy one is to look back with DX-coloured glasses. Going to WWE back then was not a cool thing to do. Vince McMahon was still in control, Roman Reigns was about to face Goldberg in Saudi Arabia, all the talent traffic, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Adam Cole, Malachi Black, Miro, was heading in the other direction. Nobody is still exactly sure why Cody left AEW, but he did vaguely say later on, "I didn't leave AEW because of money, and I didn't leave AEW because of other talents. I left AEW because of a personal issue. That's it." Perhaps that personal issue was that he didn't want to turn heel. Perhaps he regretted not being able to win the world title. Perhaps his vision for what wrestling is had drifted away from his colleagues. Or perhaps he remembered his original story and he finally had enough chips to place another bet. After Vince McMahon personally flew to meet with him, Cody returned to WWE at WrestleMania 38 as the badly kept surprise opponent for Seth Rollins. And on the following Raw, in his first promo back in the company, Cody recalled the same story he told when he quit in 2016. He wanted to win the title his father never won on that 26th of September 1977 night in Madison Square Garden. He wanted to win the WWE Championship. Up until this point, Cody had overcome obstacle after obstacle through hard work and belief. He'd earned a bit of good fortune, and it was 3 pieces of luck that helped launch him into WWE's top, not even ironically booed, mega babyface. Like his first bit of luck, tearing his pectoral muscle and having to take 6 months off for a painful recovery. It doesn't sound that lucky when I say it like that. Despite tearing his pectoral muscle in a freak accident the day before, he beat Seth Rollins going 25 minutes inside Hell in a Cell, with his entire boobie and arm the color purple. That show of grit turned Cody from that AEW guy into a beloved and, crucially, respected face. And while he was off recovering, Cody got a second piece of luck. Vince McMahon was forced out of WWE. It meant that Triple H had the control to actually follow through on long-term storytelling like the one Cody had signaled. Rhodes returned from injury to win the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble match, where it was now time to finish the story.
Yeah, all right. I don't know about that. Where's the adversity?
The stuff I just said. All the stuff I just said. You've been asking this whole video for me to finish the story.
Look, I don't make the wrestling rules.
Somehow Luke was proven to be right. Despite all of that struggle, a Roman's title reign seemingly reaching the end of its life cycle, Cody lost in the main event of WrestleMania 39. We were outraged. The collective consensus was that Cody losing was a terrible idea. It made him seem like a babyface who doesn't follow up on his promise, and everyone was sick of Roman's reign. And all of those frustrations are still right and valid in the short term. Those were some dry post-Mania months, but when you look at it as a complete book, it only made the following year's finishing chapter more powerful. After a 2023 of Brock Lesnar feuds and tag title runs, Cody won the 2024 Men's Royal Rumble match and once again called his shot at Roman Reigns, who was still the champion. Which brings us to the third and final piece of luck. WWE scrapped his story-finishing WrestleMania main event. Weirdly, the reported plan was for Cody to get his shot later in the year, so the returning Rock would fight Roman in the WrestleMania main event instead. Fans loudly rejected this and embraced Cody as their chosen hero even more. The company had to pivot, so Dwayne Johnson and Paul Levesque came up with a far better idea. The Rock would turn into a mega heel, boosting Cody's babyface persona even more with a series of brutal promos and beatdown angles. It made Cody's story so compelling, it main evented both nights of WrestleMania XL. Saturday saw The Rock and Roman beat Cody and Seth Rollins in a tag match, for Cody to overcome bloodline interference with his own Avengers lineup of faces, John Cena, Jey Uso, Seth, and even a wild Undertaker appearance to beat Roman Reigns on night 2. There was no dusty finish here, unless you're talking about the dust that I got in my eyes that was making me cry so hard. Cody officially lifted the undisputed WWE Championship above his head, the belt he had vowed to win for his father. He celebrated in the ring with his family, both wrestling and blood. Maybe there's not much of a difference. Backstage after the show, Nick Khan and Paul Levesque gifted Cody with the same model of gold Rolex watch Dusty had once promised him when he won the title. The one Dusty had pawned to pay for Cody's acting classes. It was literally time. Cody had finished his story. Wrestling has more than one royal family, but it only has one Rhodes family.
Yeah, but, I mean, the problem you've got there is, what do you do next? What's the follow-up?
You want a news story already? Watch out other WrestleTalk original documentaries on wrestling's famous families with the Bloodline family tree explained and the fall of the McMahons.